All right, the time being 1 o'clock, we will call the September 12th meeting of the Zoning Hearing Board to order. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amy, if you'd call the roll, please.
Of course. Mr. Siebold?
Present.
Ms. King? Present. Mr. Dawson?
Present.
Mr. Johnson is out sick. Ms. Gunchen?
Present.
Thank you. There's a quorum.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the meeting minutes from the August 8th hearing. Entertain a motion.
I would make that motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I will
Second.
second.
Okay, second by Dawson. Any discussion? No? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Thank you. All right, moving on to appeals. Amy, call the first appeal, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, appeal number 12295 by Yuri. I'm so sorry, I'm going to butcher this name. Paradiri, is that correct? Okay, thank you. This is concerning a property located at 414 Raspberry Street. Index is 1740-35-205. It's located in an R2 medium density residential district, and the appellant is requesting a dimensional variance for a carport addition. Per section 205, 3-foot minimum is required for a side yard setback. If you'd like to come to the stand. And, excuse me, one moment, I'm going to make sure our court reporter can speak. Okay, and the court reporter, if you can please swear our appellant in.
So for a point of clarification, though, my name is not Yuri. I just want to make sure that
And
everybody's
that'll
clear.
be addressed in here. So.
Okay, good. Yes.
Thank you. She's up on the board also.
Sir, do you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Could you repeat that? We have difficulty hearing you.
Can you hear me?
No.
Can you speak so we can hear you, or no?
Are you able to hear me?
Is there a volume control on that television? Or is she coming through the speakers? Because I can hear her saying something.
Yeah, it's just not what it is.
Yeah.
She is coming through.
Yes. Can you hear me now? Sorry.
We can hear you better. It's just a little bit low.
Okay. Okay, so sir, can you raise your right hand? And tell me when you've done
His hand is
so.
up.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I do.
Thank you.
Okay, all set.
And if you could state your name and the address for the record, so she could get that down on her record correctly.
Yes, absolutely. My name is Christopher Schmidt, and the address for record is 414 Raspberry Street, Erie, PA, 16507.
Mr. Schmidt, if you could spell your last name for the record.
Yes.
Thank you.
SCHMITT. First off, good afternoon, members of the Zoning Board. Thank you for having me here. I'm representing Yuri Paraderi in his variance application. would you I'm sure you have copies of all of this, and I believe he sent actually photos of the property and what is actually been kind of built already there. And if I may, just read this part that Mr. Paradary put together. You have a copy of that as well, and it, I think, really sums up the whole variance issue here and what he's requesting. I believe that the board should approve this request because the proximity of the driveway to the property line is within the 3-foot setback ordinance, such that building a carport would be in conflict with the said zoning ordinance. Because of this close proximity to the property line, we cannot build a carport there without the necessary authorization of a dimensional variance. Building a carport in compliance with the dimensional zoning ordinance would pose hardship because it would require shifting the furthest edge of the carport by 18 inches, thus bringing the structure's bearing post to a point in the driveway that would make it impossible to park a vehicle. This carport project will give shelter to a vehicle that belongs to a resident who would greatly benefit from it, especially in the winter months, since she is a senior citizen and experience hardship cleaning her car from the snow. Additionally, the neighboring home's roof and siding is in such a condition that it causes flying debris during windy weather and has caused damage not only to the siding of the existing property, but the vehicles that park in that driveway. And I believe Mr. Paradary has sent photos illustrating that. This carport would serve as defense against the debris for these vehicles as well as the snow. This brand new carport would also bring a fresh element of construction and remodel to the street block to further increase the value of the properties in that area. This variance will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood nor impair the use or development of the property nearby. In order for the carport to exist, instead of a minimum of 3 feet, it would require no less than 1.5 feet or 18 inches from the property line. Therefore, I'm requesting the necessary authorization of a dimensional variance to allow me to build the carport within 18 inches or 18 inches closer than the existing 3-foot minimum.
Thank you. Is this an owner-occupied structure?
It is not.
Okay. And Amy, if you could bring up the drawing, the one that has the blue dashed lines, I think. Yes, this one. Can you see that? Mr. Schmidt, can you see that?
Yes.
So if we're looking at the drawing, there is a delineation of 10.5 feet where it looks like the car would be parked.
Yes.
This is the area we're talking about relative to the carport, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think we're looking for the picture where it has the vehicle in the front. Has Mr. Paradary indicated what type of carport structure he's looking to construct?
Yes, it's a wood structure with wood
Okay.
posts, and it would have an aluminum roof.
So the one thing the board should notice that the structure is already built, and this was put a stop work order on it as there was no permit taken out on this to be reviewed by zoning originally.
Okay.
So it is constructed at this point, to a certain point. That's what I was looking for. I do have a photo on my phone if you'd like to see that. Could put that in here.
Yes, that is exactly right.
The current posts as they sit, are they only 18 inches from the other property?
Yes, that is correct.
So how do you get in and do repairs?
Yeah, it is a tight space, there's no question about that, but it will not be enclosed on that side. So the side that's closest to the adjoining property there, it will just be posts, so it would be very easy to move around and do any kind of repairs that would be necessary.
As long as there's not a car parked there.
Well, the car would be in, you'd have to remove the car from the carport in order to do the repairs, yes, of course.
So is this house, is this 418 built right on the property line?
It's gonna be 10.5 feet away. It would be, you can see it.
418 is on the property line.
It's right here below.
Yeah.
Well,
So
right.
our records indicate 10.5 feet. When I was there, I measured, there's about a half a foot left. So it goes out the 10 feet, and then that would indicate that there's only a half a foot left for property line,
Okay.
based on our records.
Is that half foot, is that based on the post or based on the overhang?
Based on the post at that point.
It is interesting, though, to your point, that it almost, and I didn't notice that before, it almost, and I don't know if it is, it's a good question, is 418 within their setback on that side between Mr. Paraderi's property?
That ship would have sailed decades ago.
Well, of course, of course, of course. It's just because you look at the opposite side going north, and you see that there's a substantial difference in the setbacks. That's all. I had just.
Yeah, there's no doubt this is a very tight area for all the properties involved.
Yeah.
On that street.
But that side next to 418, that's not going to be enclosed.
No, it is not.
Thanks.
Any additional questions from the board? No? Okay, thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of the request? Anyone to speak in favor? Last call, anyone to speak in favor? No one on the Zoom? No.
I had another question for him, maybe.
Sure.
Drainage.
I'm sorry?
Where's the drain in between those houses?
Okay, so the drainage is going to be flowing towards the sidewalk and street, towards Raspberry.
Coming, would it be south to north?
Well, I think it would be in that situation, east and west, right?
Yes,
For the
when
property.
Yes.
when the other house drains, where's the drains between where the overhangs are? Can
Yeah,
you see that?
It's guttered to the street, to Raspberry, off the roof. Well, of Mr. Paraderi's property it is. Unfortunately, the gutter is not on the existing residence number 418, and the siding and the roof is in very bad condition on that existing property. But to
Does-
answer your question.
Okay, does the port include a drain? Does the overhang?
Will there be a gutter on it towards the street is the question?
Because right now, it's
Yes.
going straight to the other person's property.
Yes, and that's a very good point. I believe that Mr. Paraderi could certainly add a gutter on the, at the bottom of that carport roof to exit the water towards the street.
The street or storm sewer?
There's that side of that's a very good picture there. That's the adjoining property at 418, with no gutter at the top there. And as you can see, it's in quite bad repair.
And I guess that's what I was asking. How does that person within 18 inches make repair to that property? How does the person within 18 inches make the repairs to that property?
Well, because there's just posts, so the posts do not, inhibit the person from being able to work on the side of that property. If the carport itself was enclosed, if it was walled off, you are correct. It would be very difficult to do any repairs whatsoever. But because it's just posts, then it does not limit or impair the ability to work on that home.
I've never put up siding, but I'm wondering if 2 feet is enough space for somebody to get a ladder up there on that side.
Not being a contractor, I can't speak to that.
That's a tough.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone here to speak opposed? Anyone opposed? Last call, anyone opposed? Okay. Mr. Schmidt, we're going to hear the next appeal. We'll take a brief executive session, then we'll be back to vote. Okay, thank you. Yes. Sure.
Amy, do you know if 418 is occupied?
At this time, I do believe it's occupied. I have referred that over to the code enforcement officer for code violation as well.
Okay, and it's a 2-unit, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Amy, if you could call the next appeal, please.
Okay, next appeal is appeal number 12296 by Claudine Emerson concerning a property at 1624 West 22nd Street, index 19-6206-329, located in an R1 low-density residential district. The appellant is requesting a special exception variance for a short-term rental per section 20411. Special exception approval is required for our short-term rentals. Before we start, I would like to note that we have appreciated you working with our documents and our new forms. One of the new forms that you will be receiving is the online form that does calculate, and everything has been reviewed to get to this step. So she is ready to go.
Great.
Okay.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please, and then be sworn in.
Claudine Emerson, 1624 West 22nd Street, Erie, Pennsylvania, 16502.
Thank you.
And the last name is spelled E-M-E-R-S-O-N.
Thank you. If you could be sworn in, please.
Please swear or affirm? Please swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
All right, I don't know, with everything that's submitted ahead of time, what description you want of everything. I submitted everything on the compliance checklist. The only thing that has any questionability would be the screen planting strip provision. For over the last 3 years, as I've been working with City Council and all of this in the development of these regulations, I did indicate that I felt like this one needed to be reworded a little bit in the sense that every situation is so dependent on what is there already. So on the east side of my property, there is a strip of cement that is actually part of my property. It's about this wide to the right of the planting. And that is actually up against concrete driveway of my east side neighbor. That makes her driveway just that about 18 inches wider to drive on and pull in further on her thing. And we have, she talked to me about that. We have had no problem with her, having that driveway there. So between, she pulls into there, that whole strip on the left, like I said, is mine, and all the way back to the front of the garage on the back, there is concrete in our backyards, like outside her door and outside my back door. It's all concrete there. So anything to separate is not possible to plant on the concrete there. I have included a letter from that neighbor, her Barry Lynn Abate, and she is, understands that having something there to separate. Now, she has a fence from there to the back of the property line that starts at the garage and goes to the back, and then I have grass on there. There is nothing behind the garage. There is no reason to be beyond the garage on the property ever. There's no chairs out there. There's no surface. There's no fire pit. There's nothing there. The guests, to my knowledge, the most they've ever done is be in the driveway. The other side, on the west side, there is my driveway and maybe 3 feet of grass between my driveway and the house, and then maybe about 6 feet from the end of their house to the front of my garage. So it does leave an open space, and you can see the front of the garage to the back of the house on the west side. I mean, it's probably like my arm span. So if they're sitting out behind their house, they can see just in front of my garage there. This is, if you can see the actual house, the garage is larger than the house. The house is 20 by 20. It is a 1-bedroom. The occupancy allows for single guest or a couple. They do not have access to enter the home through the back door. It is an emergency exit. It is not blocked off. They can get in and they can leave the premises through that door, but they do not have a key for entry to that door. So the front door has a keypad. They can only enter and exit from the front of the house. The other pictures are, there are 2 lights. Obviously, they are not motion activated. They are very just regular light bulbs. There's one on the garage and one right there on the back door. To my knowledge, the people have to actually go towards the basement to turn them on. So I don't think that they're frequently on. They wouldn't want to pull their cars back to that garage area because they would be further from the front door going in and out. Now, that west side neighbor that does have that little bit of view there in front of the garage, I have tried to contact the people that are living there without any luck. I wrote them a letter, knocked on their door, and then in talking with Amy last week, she was kind enough to tell me that they weren't the owners and gave me the owner's information. I have since mailed them a letter inquiring that if they would want some sort of planting there could be a possibility of putting it there, and I'm more than willing to do that. But again, I feel like it could be something that they'd be like, oh, that I don't want that, or I do know that adding plantings there, I have about, on the other side of the garage, it's probably, I can see the post in the backyard, whatever that setback is from the property line. So there is room to put some plantings there. It is difficult to get snow removal back in there because the driveway comes in on my property and then widens in front of the garage. And so I know that if I did put plantings there, it would prohibit me from being able to probably use a truck, without back dragging and things. So it does make that a little bit more, challenging. My neighbors, have never said anything to me. So, and like I said, I sent a letter to the owner. So I'm more than willing, as you go through how you want to handle this particular provision, I would have put plans there, but I also didn't know what really the zoning board had in mind with the ordinance, like what kind of planting, does it have to be so high, and whatnot. Okay. So, but I think everything else on the list is definitely just checked for meeting the regulation.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And you'll be the agent, you'll be the emergency contact?
Correct.
Okay.
Parcel.
So that's probably shifted a little bit, you think?
Yeah, please don't look at our parcel lines with accuracy in any way. Data on maps.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, so I'm in Plain, and I inspected this house for her back home, so I know the property a little bit. On that east side, the property line is basically your sidewalk, right?
It is the crack supposedly between those two budding pieces of concrete.
And then the neighbor just has a super thin driveway.
Correct.
Okay. And there's no easement there, there's no.
There is no
these
easement.
ordinances are friendly.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the west side, does the property line go maybe 2 feet from the garage?
Yes.
Is that what we're thinking?
When I stand and look down the yard, you can see those two white posts in my neighbor's backyard. That's a clothesline. And behind that back post, there's a stanchion in the ground, which I assume is the property line. And I would say I have about this much grass to the left of not only the garage, but the concrete that makes my driveway.
Any further questions? No?
I guess I have one for Amy. On the screen planting strip, it's really not defined that well. Correct?
Screening is defined in our zoning ordinance. Would you like me to pull it out for you?
Yeah, and I
Take it
guess my
away.
question is, essentially, our house kind of becomes the screen on that side, so, right? Or no?
I personally don't think that the house fits into the screening definition, personally. Let me get that for you so you can understand. This is coming from the zoning ordinance. Directly, screening shall mean a fence, evergreen hedge, or wall at least 6 feet high, provided in such a way that it'll block a line of sight. I guess the house could be arguable, but there. If an evergreen hedge is planted, the hedge must reach 6 feet in height within 1 year of planting. Screening shall be maintained and kept clean of debris, rubbish, and weeds.
So this is part of my question, because if I were to plant along that west side, something that you're describing, there's just room for the planting, and it will probably grow onto the, it will extend onto their property. We're only talking about this much. And, if a neighbor would say, I don't want to maintain, right now, we just run a lawnmower there. I don't want to maintain that hedge on my side of the property. So I guess my question is to you moving forward, if I can reach the owner and they're saying, we don't want that, how is that going to operate through this system? Or is it going to be technically it's my property, they don't have to give me permission because it is my property there. But, I'm trying to say, no, and this isn't a house that fits more than 1 or 2 people. So there's not going to be a big deck out back with outdoor activities even going on. So as we move forward, I'm willing to do what has to be done and what you want to be done, but I'm just trying to point out some of those issues that, especially if the neighbor doesn't want it, or,
And will we requiring planting or will fence work?
Either or, according to the definition of screening. But the house wall is what I can't see that there.
I guess the important thing for you as a board to consider is the fact that, we didn't draft the ordinance, right? This board had no input on the ordinance. We are handed the ordinance, and we are told to enforce the ordinance. So we have to take a look at what the actual requirements are, and go from there, because it is a special exception. So our discretion is going to be a little limited in this.
Okay.
So with that, would she have options to ask for a variance? That would be a separate hearing?
No, I don't think so, because the special exception is essentially, it's essentially the variance. You can't, so if the rules say in order to get a special exception, you have to do X, Y, and Z, you really can't get a variance from those special exception requirements unless it's built into the ordinance to allow you to do that.
My additional question would be what length there would require it. You know, it doesn't say anywhere in the ordinance, like, this needs to go from that entire side, like, you know, all the way to the street. Like, there's no, like, where does that end? The front of their house, the back of their house? The line of sight was brought up in the definition of screening. So, like I said, I'm willing to do whatever needs to be done there, but I needed help to even, I couldn't come here with the plan of what to do.
How do you define a line of sight?
I guess I'm looking down a property line and saying this is the line of sight between two neighbors. That's how I interpret that myself.
I'm talking about length. Is it
Length?
my sight from my house looking across the other house? Or is, once the fence is up and it's 3 feet in the back, that's enough?
It couldn't cross the sidewalk, obviously.
It can't go across the sidewalk, and it has to be at least 6 foot high. So my interpretation, if I was looking at this, I would want to see a property line type situation, or maybe in from the property line even, and blocking the view from that property to determine line of sight.
So this
We
is
can
kind
have a
of,
discussion.
but so if she put it close to the house, all the way down and had a gate, do your people use that sidewalk, or nobody uses that sidewalk?
What sidewalk are you referring
Your
to?
sidewalk on the east side of your house.
No,
They park in your driveway, so you don't really need a gate, right?
no,
So you could run so you could conceivably run a fence down this close to the house.
You can put it anywhere on the property line, direct, or inside of the property line.
I think
of
if a
yours.
fence had to be erected, it would be using the line of the garage.
I mean,
The
on
neighbor's
I mean, on the east side, yeah.
Oh, the east side, there's no way, I mean, I guess, I mean, that's, you have the letter from the neighbor there that it actually impedes what we're doing there to put
Well, I
something.
think if you snug it up against the house,
Right.
she would lose 6 inches.
Okay,
Does that
so,
make sense?
but again, it's like, do I start it at the back of the house?
Exactly right.
Like, to run it along the house, now I can't repair anything on that side of the house.
I know.
Yeah,
So
Well-
that's why I asked that question about if the
Yeah.
house can be screened.
that's what I mean, it's sort of, and then on the
I
west
mean, we have
side.
that situation. We have fences coming up to the back of the house to block I mean, that's a normal thing on a fence. So I don't think that it's not acceptable. It's just a line of sight. What line are you looking at?
Exactly right.
So in theory, the fence could go from the sidewalk to the house, from the back of the house to the back of the house.
Screening is screening, as long as it's blocking somebody's view. I think that's the intent of my personal opinion.
And I guess I feel on the west side, if you're talking about needing a fence all the way up to, like, the front of the house or up to that sidewalk, that aesthetically, that's not pleasing. To just in the middle of a block, have a fence that comes all the way to the front sidewalk. So we need to know where it would have to start. You just don't want a fence poking out in the middle of the street.
Well, you have to watch for the right of way and watch some of those. We wouldn't allow some of that per the zoning ordinance. So some of that would be relieved.
Yeah,
maybe
just
on a
knowing
driveway
where it would
side.
have to be erected,
Yep.
And, yeah.
Any additional questions?
No?
No? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Okay, anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone opposed? Last call. Anyone opposed? All right, we are going to take a brief executive session, and we will be back. All right, relative to the appeal, Amy, could you call the roll, please? The first appeal, excuse me.
First appeal, this is 12295, 414 Raspberry. Mr. Sebald?
Denied?
Ms. King?
Denied.
Mr. Dawson?
Denied.
And Ms. Gunchen?
Also denied.
I can speak to you at the next steps after the meeting if you'd like. But the appeal has been denied.
Okay, so you officially just send out a notification?
There will be an official notice, absolutely.
Very good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, and relative to the second appeal on today's agenda at 1624 West 22nd Street, Ms. Emerson, unfortunately, the ordinance does not take into consideration any specific situations at specific properties. We, as the zoning hearing board, also do not have the latitude to provide any sort of additional variance relative to a specific situation like yours. Our role is to make sure that short-term rental appellants meet every single checklist as required by the ordinance. So today, it is the consensus of the board, and we will call the roll, that we are going to deny the application for today relative to the screen planting, as it is required for your specific property. Okay. Let us call the roll, and then we can address that. Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Sebald?
Denied.
Ms. King?
Denied.
Mr. Dawson?
Denied.
Ms. Gunchen?
Also denied.
Appeal has been denied, and I can help you with the next steps as well if you just give us a second. Thank you.
All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you, board.